This is Hidden Killers Week in Review.
A look back at the most prolific stories of the week.
Welcome to the podcast. If you'd like to listen to an ad-free version of this episode and all of our episodes, then search True Crime Today Premium Plus on Apple Podcasts and press subscribe. That's our premium channel where all of our ad-free and advanced episodes live, all in one place. True Crime Today Premium Plus. Search it on Apple Podcasts and press subscribe. Even try it for 3 days free.
The evidence is gone, but the nightmare continues. Welcome to Hidden Killers with Tony Brueski, featuring former prosecutor and defense attorney Eric Faddis.
Future of Richard Allen behind bars. Obviously he's already been tortured for a long time in solitary confinement and such. He's in there for, the sentencing hasn't happened yet, but likely a very long time. Prison doesn't really treat people who are convicted of murdering children or have any sort of sexual offense very well. This is not looking good. I mean, he already has lost his mind, for lack of a better term, once. It seems that he did come back. This keeping him alive through this process, I think, is almost the big concern here.
It is a very real worry on multiple fronts. One is the external threat. So like you said, someone who's convicted of killing 2 little girls is not going to be looked at fondly in prison by the other prisoners. He could become a target. On top of that, the reports indicate that he was really psychologically unraveling and engaging in behavior that could constitute a threat to himself. And so, he would have to remain alive during the pendency of these appeals to see any benefit from them. And I think there's a very real concern that could not happen.
What about somebody getting involved in this case, like an Innocence Project or something of that nature, as he's going through the appeals process, investigating this, advocating for this, but maybe in investigating, finding new evidence? That could also be a window into a new trial as well, could it not? And what is the bar for that?
Oh, certainly. And it brings to mind the Scott Peterson case. Mm-hmm. The Innocence Project got involved with his case and attempted to procure and do further testing on some evidence that they feel wasn't appropriately considered at the trial level. So here, the standard would be if you found new evidence and that there was a reasonable probability that the admission of that new evidence would cause the jury to come to a different conclusion, meaning you can't have evidence of guilt that is so overwhelming that it would overshadow the new evidence. New evidence has to be material, and it has to have a likelihood of changing the outcome. So it's a high bar.
It feels like the investigation was done extremely poorly. It feels like there's a lot of evidence out there that is ripe for the picking if you can find it in this case. I'm very curious about the digital footprints of many of the other individuals in this, Elvis to the Keegan Kline, everybody, and just see what was being communicated on these devices, if they can even go back to that. All of that stuff. There's so many things here that don't seem to have been looked into to the level of which they could. The voice. You just had the officer saying, "Yeah, that's him." What's your comparison? I just think it is. We could do that. I mean, there's a lot of, and I don't know that you're going to get very conclusive results in the voice because it's a really shitty recording, but it's something. I mean, I would just think you could find a handful of things in this case that weren't even admitted or allowed into evidence that are, in fact, evidence. What about the things there that weren't admitted into evidence, into the court? Can that be considered new evidence if the judge never allowed it in the first place?
Yes, I think that any evidence that was not initially admitted in the trial could be considered new evidence by an appellate court. Now what some appellate courts might say is like, hey, you tried to get this evidence in and the judge just didn't like it or didn't think it was legally appropriate. So that's not the same as like discovering some new smoking gun at an alternative suspect's house.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's a lot of stuff that didn't come in, and that gentleman, Ronald Logan.
Yeah.
I think that there could be more attention paid to him and other potential alternative suspects. Alternative suspect evidence is usually qualifying as potentially new evidence that can get a new trial.
How on earth Keegan Kline was not connected to this under the name Anthony Schatz is baffling. I mean, you literally have a person who is a child predator, is away now that when they looked into him, but he literally talked about meeting the girls the day they were murdered. I mean, how is that something else you wouldn't look into? And if it wasn't him, who did he tell that he was going to meet these girls? Who did he tell where these girls are going to be if he had knowledge of that? That seems to me like just this beacon of light possibly for Richard Allen, if it can be accepted. But Gall said no to all of these things.
It was, I think, an improper ruling. And my understanding is that Keegan Klein gentleman may have had actual direct contact with Libby at some point. Like, he's talking with these child victims who would later turn up murdered. On top of that, he's a known sexual predator, at least according to the reports I've read. And so, why not look at him a little more closely? And hopefully the defense team on the appellate side is going to marshal up all of this evidence to give to new eyes, a new judge on the appellate court, and say, please take another close look at this and see if this should have been admitted. Oh my gosh, there's just so many things in this case. I get more angry as I continue to go down the line in the list. Like, oh yeah, and there's this too. And I mean, there's so many. I forgot many things. Like, oh yeah, they did that as well. It's shocking. All right. Well, he's guilty for now. Hopefully some other things can happen, because this just does not seem like justice was served, in my opinion, at least. Welcome to the podcast. If you'd like to listen to an ad-free version of this episode and all of our episodes, then search True Crime Today Premium Plus on Apple Podcasts and press subscribe. That's our premium channel where all of our ad-free and advanced episodes live, all in one place. True Crime Today Premium Plus. Search it on Apple Podcasts and press subscribe. Even try it for 3 days free.
You're in the thick of a true crime saga, every detail sinking in. And then, wham, a commercial about something you couldn't care less about. It's like being served a microwaved dinner at a 5-star restaurant. But it doesn't have to be this way. Go for True Crime Today Premium Plus on Apple Podcasts. With True Crime Today Premium Plus, you get uninterrupted, ad-free episodes, extended interviews that dig even deeper into the muck, and early access so you can brag to your friends. It's like ordering the secret menu at a crime buffet. So, search for True Crime Today Premium Plus on Apple Podcasts, subscribe, and savor every twisted detail without interruption.